Welcome back to another episode of A Different Perspective.
In this episode, we are going to talk about shooting in inclement weather.
Shooting in inclement weather can lead to some challenges, but with the right gear and preparation, it's really not that hard to spend some time outside capturing unique images, especially when everyone is inside enjoying spiked eggnog by the fire.
And hopefully these tips will also help you when you're thinking about traveling or wherever you're going to be able to prepare with the right equipment to get you the shots that you need to get wherever you go, whenever you go.
So first, since we just went through that whole cold weather intro, we thought it would be good to start with the whole cold weather theme. So I think we would both agree that keeping your hands warm, especially in cold weather, is going to be one of the most essential tips because it'll keep you out there longer. So having a nice pair of gloves that are like touchscreen capable ones to bring along with you to wear for the entire shoot is going to be essential. And then another thing to consider is when you're out there and you're in really extreme temperatures, you can also bring another pair of gloves along with you so that you can either swap them out or just put them over the touchscreen gloves that you're wearing.
So I actually just recently experienced this where I was out on a shoot in the middle of the night in the winter. It was about 18 degrees, super duper cold. And when I packed up and put all my stuff in the camera bag and went into the truck, I noticed it was like the temperature difference was so extreme, it's like hard to get out of your mind that it could damage your equipment. So it's a good idea, if you're able, to put the camera equipment into your backpack or camera bag and leave it in there as it acclimates to the different temperature. That way it reduces fogging and moisture buildup potentially, and it just helps slow the transition from cold to warm so that you're less likely to damage something, maybe crack glass or, if it's that extreme, that'd be pretty crazy. But it's just a good idea to leave stuff in your backpack until it acclimates to the temperature that you need to use it in.
So another thing to keep in mind with your gear is to bring extra batteries with you. So being out in cold environments or even some higher temperatures, they will drain your batteries faster. So just being prepared and having a couple extra batteries with you will help you stay out longer without having to recharge things.
And make sure that you reference your user manual for all your different gear so that you know the minimum operating temperature of it. You can push it a little bit with most weather sealed cameras these days, but even my Sony a7 III, I know that it says not to use it under 32 degree weather. I've used it in much colder, but just be aware of that and be very careful.
And then another thing to consider is about your footwear. It's just as essential as keeping your hands warm. You want to wear proper boots or footwear when you are traveling in snow or ice conditions. Another thing that helps keep traction is buying a pair of those crampons that either have the spikes or the metal on the bottom that you can clip on or put on the bottom of the boots.
Whatever the situation, just be sure that you are well prepared, not only for your gear, but also for yourself. Be smart, be safe. Don't go out somewhere super rural without someone there to, be there in case something goes wrong. And, just in general, be wise, stay warm, and don't be dumb. And you'll be fine. And your camera will be fine. Hopefully. All right, so we've covered the basics of keeping your gear safe in cold weather. Now let's flip on over to hot weather. And we're going to talk about hot, dry weather and hot, humid weather.
So another thing that you want to consider when you're out shooting in hot weather is if you go into, say, your car and you're blasting the AC, and so you're taking your camera from hot, muggy weather or hot, dry weather and then into a cooler environment, you also want to keep your camera in that bag for a little bit of time to make sure that you don't get lens fogging or moisture buildup inside your camera.
When you're in dry heat, the opposite of humidity, obviously, you could run into other problems, and probably the biggest one is dust and getting dust inside of your camera body, on your sensor. Even if you have a zoom lens, sometimes it'll suck dust into the camera body. And although most of the time it's not a huge deal to have dust on your lens, it is a big deal when it gets inside your camera and on the sensor. The best way to prevent any of that, if you know that you're going to be shooting in a really dusty environment, is to get weather sealed gear and to get a lens that has a weather sealed grommet for the camera body and that sort of thing. And a lot of lenses don't actually have that. So just be aware when you're purchasing or renting that you're getting something that will survive. And it's probably a good idea in super dusty environments to get a UV filter for the front of your lens just to protect it from scratches and stuff. I wouldn't worry about the degradation in quality unless you're going for like crazy artwork stuff, and even then I wouldn't worry about it too much. So definitely protect your stuff and think about where you're going before you're getting there and purchase the right stuff for it.
Get that rocket duster.
Yeah. And whatever you do, do not swap lenses in a dusty environment if you can at all help it.
No.
Yeah, just don't. Unless you're like super seasoned and experienced and know exactly what you're doing, I highly recommend not swapping lenses.
And two, even if it's not a dusty environment, there's dust everywhere. So when you are swapping those lenses out, it is good to have like one of these rocket duster things to just tip your camera upside down and blow out any of the dust on both the sensor and the lens. You also want to consider if you're going to be shooting in direct sunlight or you have an opportunity to be in a shady environment. If you are going to be shooting in direct sunlight, you want to consider the highest temperature that your camera can handle because you don't want to have your camera constantly overheating. And just as we mentioned in cold temperatures, one thing that you want to consider is your maximum operating temperature for your camera. Just make sure that if you are going to be in an environment where you're shooting in direct sunlight and it is very hot out, that your camera could overheat.
So there's a couple different things you can do to keep your equipment cool, and probably the more elegant solution for an outside situation would be to get an umbrella, a shade umbrella. I would highly recommend looking into a good UV umbrella, so it blocks ultraviolet light, which is the primary source of heat, and that would probably be the best bet to keep your camera cool, especially when you're doing photography and it's extremely hot. And something I've done that's kind of funny, but it works, is to get like an ice pack or like a bag of frozen fruit, and you can just set it on top of your camera, and the heat or the cool air actually sinks. So you can just plunk it right on top as long as your camera is weather sealed and you're not worried about the condensation getting in there.
And we also have some suggestions for equipment or gear that you can bring along with you, like umbrellas and different clamps.
All right, so we've covered extreme cold, I missed my finger, we've covered extreme heat. And now we're going to talk about wet environments. So rain, shooting in waterfalls, rainforests, you name it. If there is water, these tips are going to be applicable to you.
So one thing that I picked up because I knew I was going to be shooting a lot by different waterfalls and also possibly in the rain is this rain sleeve. It's super cheap. Most packs come with a couple of them. So these really help with covering and protecting your entire camera body and also the lens, because the only thing that's exposed is the front element of the lens and also your viewfinder. This is also super helpful because you can just throw it in your camera bag and it doesn't take up any room. You can throw it in one of the small pockets and it's always there. So in case you are shooting in just a normal environment, it starts raining, you have it right with you.
Okay, so you can't really get too far without having your gear in some sort of bag, and I would highly suggest getting a photography specific backpack because they're built to protect your equipment with padding as well as compartmentalize your different lenses and camera bodies and whatever. And a lot of the time these days they're weather resistant. So there's a lot of different brands out there. This one's by Peak Design. It's the everyday backpack. They've got tons of great stuff. You're going to be looking at quite a pricey bag if you get one of these high-level ones, but there are also bags that you can get that have rain covers that come with them. They're really thin, really small things that are just super easy to pack, and they don't take up any space, and they just go over the top of your bag. And for the best of both worlds, you could get a weather-resistant bag and a rain cover if you're going to be really in some heavy downpour. But for the most part, weather-resistant bags, fairly expensive, but a really good investment to keep your gear in. And in light rain, most of the time, they're not a problem.
And it also serves as a really cool hat when you're out in the rain. So if you don't want to use it for your camera bag, you've got it for your head.
That is like the most trendy shower cap I've ever seen.
And A shower cap too.
Yeah.
And look at me, I'm prepared to be a chef.
It's like 4 in 1. It's amazing. If your backpack doesn't come with a rain cover, I'm sure you could find one online that fits your bag, or just a generic backpack one or duffel bag, whatever bag you have. I'm sure you can find a solution.
Then obviously, as we mentioned, with the heat and providing shade, you can also use one of those umbrella solutions to keep dry in the rain.
Mm-hmm. And if you want the triple whammy or double whammy or whatever, you could get a UV umbrella and make sure that it's waterproof. So yeah, there you go.
All right, for our last episode, we let the hats decide what our photo challenge was. And again, that was shooting architecture in black and white and then using our phones only. So we're going to talk about our editing process and how we captured our shot. All right, once again for this photo challenge, it was architecture, shot or edited in black and white, and also using phones only. So I used my iPhone to shoot these photos, and I went back to the same location that I shot my silhouette photo at, which is Hotel Henry here in Buffalo, New York. So this is what I started with. I was really digging this full on wide shot of this place, but with my phone I was kind of limited, not wanting to get a lot of the other stuff that's behind me in this photo in the same frame. I took it at a different angle, so took it horizontal instead of vertical, and then moved in closer, got a different angle here in this shot using that sculpture in front, and then landed on this one as my final shot. So here's the after, fully edited. Here's the before. As far as editing for this one, it was pretty simple. Switched the color profile over to monochrome, boosted the exposure just a tiny bit, boosted the contrast a lot, dropped the shadows down -4, so that was just a little bit. Played around with the tone curve here, gave it a little tiny bit of an S curve. And for the effects, I boosted the texture, clarity, and dehaze all at 20. For the detail, I added a little bit of sharpening in there, threw the masking all the way up to 100, put the color noise to 50, and that was my full edit.
All right, so here's the image I got. I didn't have a chance to really travel anywhere or go to any really awesome locations, at least not within the time frame that I needed to. So I just went out back, and we actually on our property have a silo. So it's pretty old and crazy, and there's snow on the ground. So I just got down way low, cracked the shutter on this little angle here, and then there's the moon up here, which is kind of cool too. But I haven't edited this yet, so I'm just gonna do that really fast. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch to monochrome. That way, when I'm actually working with color, it gives me this black-white mixer, which is really fun. There it is, and that is my submission for this episode.
All right, so this entire episode has been about tips and different gear that you can bring out to go shoot in inclement weather. So this photo challenge is going to be pretty open to whatever you want to shoot, but I want you guys to go out and shoot in inclement weather. So if you're in a cold environment and you have snow around, go out and shoot in that. If you are in a more hot environment, which is, why would you live in a hot environment in the winter time now? So obviously all of us that are participating in this challenge, we live in different environments. We're going to be shooting in maybe in rain, in dusty desert environments, or in snow. So whatever environment that you're shooting in, just make sure to feature what type of inclement weather that you're shooting in. Just make sure that it's apparent in the photo that you take what kind of inclement weather that you're shooting in.
And if you live in a place where there is no inclement weather right now and you need to get a shot, feel free to get creative. Like maybe go to your backyard if you've got a bunch of foliage and turn on the misters or sprinklers to make it seem like you're in a rainforest or something, and practice some of the tips we've given you. And then if you need to, in the edit, you can try to accentuate those features, maybe make it a little more misty. If it's hot, maybe add some like heat distortion or something like that. If it's really cold, do the color to make it like really blue and chilly looking. I'm not sure exactly what your situation is, but if you get creative, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to do this challenge, even if you live in Los Angeles. Ryan.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of A Different Perspective. To get involved with this photo challenge and future photo challenges, make sure when you post those photos on Instagram that you tag us at adifferentperspective.tv and use the hashtag adifferentperspectivetv.
And be sure to subscribe and put on the bell, because episode 10, it's going to be different in the best way and you don't want to miss it at all. We're actually bringing in a special guest, a pretty amazing person, and we want you to be there and be involved because no doubt you will be inspired.
Smash!
Yeah, smash it.
Episode 10. We almost made it.
10 episodes. It's crazy.
Hopefully the world doesn't end before 2 weeks from now.
Nah, this has to happen. It's so good. It'll end right after we put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we've covered the basics of cold weather and how to protect your gear there. Now we're gonna flop over to hot weather, and this could be dry heat or humid heat. What did I do?
Now we're gonna flop over to
What did I say before flop?
I don't know.
Flip?
Flip flop or something.
Dang it.
I'm sorry. That was on me laughing.
No, that's funny. It's fine.
We can just say we're gonna switch over to.
I got this.
It's my fault.
A couple things you can do to keep your camera cool is, well, the more elegant solution, the more arrogant solution.
You arrogant SOB.
Okay.
Would you look at it? Would you just look at it? Just look at it. If you just look at it, you'd just be looking at it.